So this is what I want to talk to you about. As we went into this debt negotiation, and you sit back and understand, what does the other side want to see come out of this? It is very simple. The Monday night before the Boehner plan was voted on, when the chief deputy whip of the minority party, Peter Wells from Virginia, came over to our side, where I'm sitting next to Paul Brown, and everyone knows where I sit over there on the House floor. And he comes up to me and says one simple thing. He said, you and Brown aren't going to cave in and let Boehner have his way. Now, Paul Brown from Georgia kind of laughed it off. But I thought about, why did that guy come from the other side, straight over here to the two of us, and ask us about supporting this plan? It's very simple. They have to see us split. They have to see us divided, because that's the only way that they're going to be successful. When you go into this debt agreement fight, there are four things that the president wanted to happen. First thing and foremost thing was to be able to blame the Republican Party for a crisis. Be it a real crisis or a manufactured crisis, they wanted to blame the Republican Party for it. The second thing the president wanted, and he demanded, was to have a clean debt ceiling raise of $2.4 trillion. The third thing that he wanted and demanded was this balanced approach of having tax hikes as part of the final settlement agreement. And the last thing that he wanted to have was not to ever have this whole discussion about debt or the fiscal situation in the United States of America come up in 2012. And the end result, he did not get any of those four things. And as a matter of fact, when you look at the approval rating of the president coming out of the debt negotiations, finally his approval rating is upside down. You now have a president that through that series of events came off looking inept, incompetent, irrelevant, diminished. What's the most important thing that we have to be concerned about as we move forward? If you lose your sights on what is going to happen in next November 2012, then we're not going to be able to be successful. Now, hopefully a lot of you all, when you leave here, will take this advice. I want you to go rent the movie Gettysburg. And in renting the movie Gettysburg, I want you to pay attention to the first battle that happened there. And that was the battle where the Union cavalry commander, J.N.L. Buford, gained contact with the main Confederate Army, the Army of Northern Virginia. He was able to do that because the Confederate cavalry commander, under the lead of Jeb Stuart, had abandoned Lee's army and was running around in the Pennsylvania countryside. Now, what Buford knew was that with his cavalry regiment, he would not be able to defeat the Army of Northern Virginia. But he knew that there was a piece of high ground that was important to hold, and that piece of high ground ended up being called Seminary Ridge. So what Buford did was he fought a classic holding action. He actually engaged the Confederates prior to the high ground of Seminary Ridge. And the Confederates actually thought that the Union was running, but he was buying time, being pushed back and being pushed back and being pushed back to Seminary Ridge, where finally the Union Army of the Potomac linked up with him. In Washington, D.C., we have 1/2 of 1/3 of the federal government. We're fighting a holding action. And if we lose the understanding that the main battle, the main engagement for the future and the legacy of the United States of America comes in November 2012, we need you all as the Army of the Potomac to link up with us. But if we're too busy fighting amongst ourselves, then we're never going to get there. Now, what has happened within the last week? The blame game came out. Who are they blaming on the other side in the Democrat Party? Every single talking head on Sunday news shows said one simple thing: Tea Party downgrade. You turn over to CBS, Tea Party downgrade. You turn to ABC, Tea Party downgrade. You turn to CNN, Tea Party downgrade. You got John Kerry talking about not allowing people to have an opposing viewpoint. These are the same people that talked about the fairness doctrine not too long ago and wanting to have their views out there. Now they don't want to have the opposing view. And what just happened today out in Iowa? Who was on TV? And what did she call the Tea Party? A bunch of flakes. Now, what are you all doing to organize yourselves? This is what you need to have. You need to have an organization, you need to have a game plan, you need to have a communications plan. Who is doing the press releases for the Tea Party? Who is doing the response to some of these things? Who is out here writing op-ed pieces in the Sun Sentinel and the Palm Beach Post to make sure that your correct voices are being heard? Who is the spokesperson when some of these things come down? That's what you need to start doing. Now, the vote that I made, as I said from the very beginning, it wasn't a 100% plan. If we could have got cap and balance through, that was the best deal. But if you sit around and you don't come back and bring something back up to the table, then the next thing you know, there is nothing there and we get something shoved down our throats. That's why we voted immediately on the Harry Reid plan before Harry Reid had a chance to bring it up in the Senate. And they had no chance. We forced them into accepting at least what we had. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough. It's kind of like in football. And I'm sure Pastor Dozier will agree. When you start out, it's 1st and 10. If you pick up 4 yards, don't be pissed off about the fact that you picked up 4 yards. Pick up another 4 yards. Pick up another 4 yards. The thing about the other side is that they understand incrementalism. It's kind of how you take a frog, you put him in a pot of cold water, and slowly you turn up the heat. But if you believe that we're going to go up there right now and change everything about Washington, D.C. on a dime like that, 30 years of failed economic policies and overspending, it's not going to happen in 7 months. But what did happen in 7 months? A year ago, the dominant conversation all across this land was a health care law. And how terrible that health care law was. The dominant conversation in America and in Washington, D.C. is how much more can we cut spending. Now, if you miss out on the fact that you have changed the conversation in Washington, D.C., that you're having an effect on what's happening in Washington, D.C., if you don't understand that, you cannot continue to be a group or an organization that just says, no, you have to now be a group or an organization that says, we know how to govern. We know how to come up with solutions. Because let me tell you what the other side's going to do. The other side now is going to attempt to demonize the Tea Party and everything they're about. So that anybody running in 2012, every single liberal news media is going to come up and say, do you support the Tea Party? And if they say yes, then they're going to say, okay, and then you're branded over here as being way out of line. You got to understand what you believe in the Tea Party. You believe in effective and efficient constitutionally mandated government. You believe in fiscal responsibility. You believe in national security. You believe in free market, free enterprise solutions and systems. Stick to that. Talk about that. Every single week, write about that to the Sun Sentinel, to the Palm Beach Post. Get it into the local papers that we have around here, being a Deerfield Beach Observer. Mr. Eller is one of the staunchest conservatives around here. You should be getting every single time they print. There should be an article there. That's how we're going to have to take this battlefield and beat folks. Now, if you're still mad at me, guess what? Take a number. I'm the #1 target for the Democrat Party. You see what's just happened in Wilton Manor, where a bunch of individuals decided that a sitting member of Congress on the Small Business Committee could not go in and talk to local small business owners. As a matter of fact, they threatened to boycott them. So now I'm on their hit list. I go to bed every night knowing one simple thing. I did the best that I possibly could for each and every one of you to sent me to Washington, D.C. 100%? You better go to Pastor Dozier's church and find Jesus. Because I'm a man, I ain't perfect. I'm mortal. But I tell you one simple thing. You put me up against anyone up there, and based upon 3 evaluative criteria: honor, integrity, and character. You show me somebody that's going to do better. And if you can, I'll leave, I'll come back home. But I don't think you're going to find that. God bless you.